Welcome to Dorman Products Envoy Air Suspension Delete Kit install video. Before you begin, please note this installation is considered difficult by our technicians and should take you between 2 to 3 hours to complete. As a first step, remove the number 1 fuse from the engine fuse box, ECAS fuse. This will disconnect the air suspension compressor. Now lift the vehicle and remove the wheel. For your safety, make sure the rear axle is thoroughly supported. Next, disconnect the ride height sensor from the axle. Locate the air suspension compressor in the rear of the vehicle and disconnect all sensors. Additionally, find air line connections on the top of the compressor and partially unscrew them, releasing all air pressure before fully disconnecting all compressor bolts and removing the air suspension compressor from the vehicle. Moving over to the air spring, press down on anti-rotation peg and turn the air spring counterclockwise to remove it from its position on the upper spring seat. It may take some finessing to work the air spring loose. Locate and disconnect the air line at the top of the air spring. Now remove the air spring from the vehicle. Remove the bottom and top rear shock bolts and take the old shock off of the vehicle. Place the new shock in position. At this point, attach the upper and lower shock bolts. Leave both bolts hand or loosely tightened. Remove upper spring isolator and lower axle to allow enough room for spring installation. Check to determine which end of the spring is more tightly wound. Ensure this tighter coil is installed upwards in the vehicle. Now, mount the spring in the vehicle. Once the spring is in position, raise the axle back into position and tighten the upper and lower shock bolt to factory specifications. Finally, remove push pin from the centering hole for the ride height sensor. While holding the ride height sensor in its original position, thread a zip tie through the centering hole and sensor. Tighten the zip tie to hold the sensor firmly in position. After this is in place, you can replace the push pin and clip the excess length off the zip tie. If you're going on to replace the front shocks, remove the front tire. It may be helpful to use a lubricating spray before trying to loosen the bolts holding the old shocks in place. Lower the vehicle and raise the hood to allow access to the top 2 bolts holding the shock in place. Loosen and remove both nuts. Raise the car back up to a comfortable working height. Moving down to the lower arm of the shock in the wheel well, remove the upper and lower nuts and removable bolt from the lower shock mount. It may be necessary to use additional tools to tap, pry, and loosen the arm off of its mounts. Remove the old shock, shifting the lower shock mount from the used shock to its identical position on the new shock you're installing. Insert new shock and repeat steps to reattach all nuts and bolts into their original positions. After the new shock is in place, reattach the wheel to complete the installation.